Where did you have that emotional maturity or just maturity in general to understand that you needed someone like that, the right sort of push, because you were able to understand that you have a lot of ideas, but bringing that idea to market is a totally different ballgame. And you kind of knew, you know what, if I want to kick this ball forward, I need someone that's going to maybe, bring the second half of me to make this thing go forward. How did you know that so young?
Yeah, I mean, I think it actually goes a little bit back to that gut, that intuition or like that instinct
Yeah,
almost,
that's a bit.
because I wouldn't necessarily say that I had some, like wise, I mean, perhaps like some of the mentors and people that I was surrounded myself with, like, I was surrounded by from a young age. Like I had really brilliant people around me. My grandfather was brilliant. My parents are
Your
brilliant.
grandmom, you said?
My grandparents were both brilliant.
That's
My
awesome.
grandfather, I spent a lot of time with, the one who had the original plant.
He'd be so
But
proud, wouldn't he? Is he still alive?
he's not.
He would be so proud.
But I have a lot of fond memories of building things with him, and he sort of indulged my every curiosity as a child, and I think that was something that probably lent itself to who I am today. Is that I would say I want to make this, and he would like drop the plans for it. So yeah, I mean, I think back then it was probably more of a gut instinct, but I think that what I've learned is in reflecting back on like some of the decisions that I made just based off of instinct or based off of a feeling back then have proven to be wise decisions in the long term. And so in reflecting back, I'm able to see like, this is where that puzzle, I didn't even necessarily know that this was a puzzle piece that was going to come together, but it really has. And this is why. And I think being able to reflect back on decisions that you've made and learn from them, whether you learn that like I made the right decision or I will change course on the next, or if I give someone some advice, I might share that like I made this decision with the information that I have now. I might have made a slightly different one. I think that's a lot of how I approach like life and how I think about the business and how I think about growing and learning from the business. So even going back to like, I don't necessarily know that as a 23-year-old or so, I knew that like Lila was going to be this perfect complement for these
No,
exact reasons.
no, right. You had an
But
instinct and you
but I
followed.
had an instinct. And then now, as I reflect back on like a lot of the reasons why we work so well together, why we've been able to advance the business and our products only have been on the market for 3 years and we're in over 250 Whole Foods.
Okay, so let's talk.
So
I got like a million things I want to ask you. One thing I want to touch on before I go forward is every single successful entrepreneur to date that I've spoken to talks about the importance of being curious. The curiosity is really what drove them. So that is also something that I'm going to be just putting somewhere in my mental memory forever, because I think that's a very important attribute. But let's go back to, it took you how many years to get this product to market? 5, 6, 7?
yeah, so we worked on the product for probably about 3 to 4 years before bringing the product to market. So, and that was, a combination of different things. It wasn't all just scientific testing for 3 to 4 years. It was figuring out some of the nuances around regulatory. It was understanding the product landscape, where we really felt we could be successful and understanding who our customer was. So there's so much that goes into building a product-based business and making sure that you do it in a way that's sustainable at the outset, that you are, you've well positioned yourself based off of the set of circumstances that you're in. I often like to, when I talk to other founders that are just getting started, I will caution all of my advice with, you are being handed a set of circumstances that is so different than the set of circumstances that I was handed, because like no two people are the same. No two businesses, like they don't exist in a vacuum, so the amount of funding that you start with, or your job and your situation, like your work situation, whether you're able to go full time immediately, or there's so many different environments in which like people start businesses. And so no two set of environments are going to be the same. And so the circumstances that led to Flourish getting started look so different from so many different other businesses. But I do think that for us, the set of circumstances that enabled us to get started was just a real passion and a drive. My co-founder was really able to jump in, head first on the business. And we were also getting started at kind of an interesting time with COVID. So like our jobs sort of enabled like this little like additional hours in the day when we weren't going into offices anymore. And so there was just a very unique
Unique scenario
environment.
that I think you're smart to point that out, that every business story and trajectory is different. But now that you have this wisdom, and I don't know if you've ever worked in a corporate environment or not, perhaps you did. What would you recommend in certain people who are wanting to start something? Go cold and just go for your dream? Or you know what? Kind of put your toe in the water and make sure you have revenue coming in I think it may depend on the person's mentality. Like, I don't know if I could just go cold and say, I'm all in, here you go. I'm going to go, $50,000 in debt. Well, let's hope it all works out. What are you finding, or what would you recommend to people who want to start a business?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because I honestly think I think that there is validity in doing it both ways. I think testing and refining and maintaining some sense of stability and security, if you can, is a great way to do things, but it also like presents its own challenges. So I think that like it's harder to jump all the way in. It's harder. You might be missing out on opportunities or not fully jumping into the risks and therefore like hamstringing yourself a little bit in the process. But you also like are giving yourself maybe the breathing room of still taking a paycheck or some of the other things that like might be required in order for you to be able to do something.